This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
The opinions, thoughts, and observations on the IRS Solution Attorney radio show are not legal advice. Facts and circumstances differ in every case. Do not take anything said on the show as legal or accounting advice. Always consult your lawyer or accountant before deciding how to handle any legal issue.
Welcome to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. If you have problems with the IRS, don't focus on the negative, focus on the solutions. With the IRS Solution Attorney, Darrin T. Mish. For over 15 years, he's been helping taxpayers with IRS problems reclaim their lives and their financial stability. Now, here's your host of the IRS Solution Attorney Show, Darrin T. Mish.
It's a great day to be the IRS Solution Attorney. I'm your host, Darrin T. Mish, and I'm here today again with my beautiful co-host, Katrina Madewell.
Once he gets the mics going. This is Katrina Madewell. Welcome to the show.
It is a beautiful day.
Tell when the mics are not hot.
Yep. It's a beautiful day to discuss IRS solutions instead of focusing on the problems and the negativity. We don't do negativity here, folks. We talk about how every problem has a solution. And that's what we're going to talk about today, if we can figure out how to stop playing music in the background.
He's doing the intro a little late. It's okay.
Oh.
He's tired. We haven't been here a while. We took a little break.
That's the way the professionals do it.
Okay.
It kind of keeps things moving.
Oh, gotcha. All right. So, you know, I'm the great thing about me is I'm not a radio professional, I guess. That's
well, your real job is an IRS attorney.
This is true. I am.
That's
actually working in the trenches every day, fighting the IRS on behalf of taxpayers like you and I, or sometimes non-taxpayers, I guess.
Trenches?
Well, hey, you try fighting the IRS every day. It's trench warfare. It's like World War I. You know, we're down in the mud. But anyway.
That's right, head-to-head with those big dogs that most people are scared to talk to.
Yeah, you know, I had one laughing yesterday.
The IRS guy? That's good.
Yeah.
Say it isn't so.
Yeah, I had one laughing, and it was an appeals call, and the call ended with her saying, well, you know, Mr. Mish, it's just really been a pleasure. I look forward to our next hearing together. And I said, you're right. I agree. My pleasure. You know, can't wait.
Oh, yeah, me too. Let's do it.
It was very amicable. I didn't win because we had some challenges with our client providing documentation in a timely manner. That never happens. Sarcasm. And so the great thing is I try to always have, you know, fallback position number one, fallback position number two. So I shared with the appeals officer what my fallback position was, and she says, oh, that's great. That's a great idea. And so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and write this up, and that'll give you another 2 or 3 months of a collection hold, and then that'll give you the time to do what you're trying to do, which is file an offer in compromise, which is how we make deals with the IRS to settle for less. Sometimes as much as 90% off. And so it gives us the time to get that done so the client doesn't have to worry about a levy and stuff like that.
Here's the thing, though, Darrin, and I can say this because I'm not an attorney, right? You are. But a lot of attorneys are just not likable.
Well,
they're not liked by most people. So if you can get some of the folks at the IRS to like you and you're likable, that's going to be half the battle because then they want to work with you, which ultimately it ends up in the consumer's best interest when you're trying to settle it.
Yeah, you know, sometimes clients want you to be the guy that, you know, figuratively goes and burns down their houses and kills the women and children. And I'm not really that guy.
Hence the non-taxpayers.
You know, I'm not really that guy. I learned this a long time ago about myself. I've been practicing law for going on 23 years now. I would much rather take the Forrest Gump style of negotiation and just be likable. And actually, I'm okay. I can feign ignorance from now and again if it's going to be strategically intelligent. So I do try to be amicable and friendly and nice. And especially, you think about with the local IRS people that I've dealt with for, 15, 16 years, and I have to deal with them again at some time in the future. I try to be professional and amicable. What happens often is...
Now, can I ask you a question real quick while you hold that thought? Why would you deal with somebody local versus call the 800 number? That doesn't make sense to me. I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, okay.
We've never talked about it.
There's lots of reasons. So if you're a taxpayer who owes a significant amount of money, say... Typically in our area, in the Tampa Bay area, a significant amount of money would be around $100,000. In parts of Texas, a significant amount of money is, $500,000 to $1 million because they just don't have as many local people. Yeah, there's just more money there. But you get assigned, your case can be assigned to someone called a revenue officer. And a revenue officer is a local person, typically works in a local office, and their job is to get the money.
Come visit you.
So they're
at your door.
federal, they are federal debt collectors. That's their deal. Now, there is a difference between a revenue officer and a revenue agent. And then there's something also called an IRS special agent. But a revenue officer is a debt collector. A revenue agent is an auditor. And then the special agent would be like a criminal investigative, division type person.
Like you lied, falsified stuff, they're turning it over there kind of thing?
Yeah, like you're getting ready to get prosecuted, and they show up your door with a gold badge, and they wear firearms. Revenue officers are not, allowed to carry firearms, probably for good reason, based on temperament.
But a pen and a pad.
Yeah, they have a badge that has their photo on it, and it's some kind of credential. I haven't seen one in a long time, but that's why you would be dealing with a local person. But also think about this: we appeal. Probably about 50% of all of our cases involve some sort of an appeal, because we're trying to move it up the food chain, so to speak. We're trying to get it to somebody with more experience, a little bit better training, a little bit more authority, and a little bit better discretion. And so we appeal a lot of things. And it used to be that most of my appeals were handled locally in the Tampa appeals office. And there's some really great guys there that I hope are listening, actually. There's some really great guys that work in that office. And we've known each other for years. In fact, typically when we work cases together, we talk about the weather and our families and sports for a good 15 minutes before the case. Then we get the case settled in 5 minutes, and it's, and everybody's happy. Now, a lot of appeals lately have been shipped off to other places. And it's interesting that you brought that up, because I have identified different temperaments based upon the appeals officer that their appeals office that they're located in. For example, Memphis, not real nice.
The good old boy IRS club?
Well, it's not the good old boys that work there. Memphis has just not been a great place for us to, have appeals heard. But yesterday, for example, I handled a case that the lady was in Fresno, California. And, it's no secret I was born and raised in California. I think I get people from California. And it was the most amicable hearing I've done in months, because I guess maybe it's the holidays. I don't know. But she was really nice, and we were able to work really well together. As opposed to some offices that are just kind of like cut and dried, no personality. There's nothing you can do as far as that goes with them. But I pride myself in trying to develop rapport with a person that works at the IRS that I've never worked with before. And you have about 5 seconds. You have about 5 to 15 seconds.
Oh, you're in California.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, you have about 5 to 15 seconds to try to lighten this thing up a little bit, so that
does it go south after? If not, if you do 30 seconds, is there a timer on?
Well, it's really hard for me to talk about the weather for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So, despite the fact
But that's
that
with anything. Like when you meet somebody, you have on average 15 seconds tops to build some rapport.
Yeah, I've read some books on how to get people to like you in 90 seconds and things like that. And typically, one of the keys is talk about them as much as you possibly can.
Or common denominators, whatever you have in common.
Yeah, exactly. So there are a lot of people at the IRS that are pretty nice and that can, you can work with. But
how do you regroup if you find this person is just not going to, he doesn't want to talk about the weather, or she doesn't want to talk about the weather? How do you make it easier so that it goes into your favor?
Well, that's a good question. I don't give up, for one.
Well, you shouldn't. Tenacity is
right.
a key ingredient.
So if things are really not going my way, like if the facts are bad, I'm going to circle back. I'm going to hit the weather. Then I'm going to hit
what's next,
where they live in the country. Then I'm going to hit
football.
An upcoming holiday. I might hit football. Although, I'll tell you, remember when the Buccaneers and the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles, had a really strong rivalry? Well, when we call ACS, which is the automated collection system of the IRS, it's where most people, it's the 800 number, most people cases are assigned once it goes into collections. We would have to call Philadelphia, and they would just see Florida, and they were just mad.
Hey, by the way, you're the only stadium in the whole United States that has a jail below your
Well, and the people in Philly are not real happy, just stereotypically anyway. So, no offense to any Philly fans
Look at that
out
weather.
there.
I mean,
But
you'd be happy there.
Yeah, so I did notice that in the depths of winter, calling Philadelphia from Tampa, bringing up the weather is not a
Not a
great
good plan.
strategy. So I think the answer, Jeff, is you just circle back to to human things that you would talk to your friends about or a new friend about, and you just try to hammer away at them. And I'll tell you what, it works. Even the grumpiest person, once they're talking to somebody that's happy and upbeat, they're gonna come around.
Yeah.
You know,
It's hard to frown when somebody's smiling. It works. If the attitude over the phone, especially, is good and up, how can they be mean to you?
Yeah.
You know, it's very
That's
difficult.
true.
It's very difficult. Yet there are people, I've run across them. Doesn't matter. Jokes doesn't matter, and they just are a-hole. You know what I'm talking about? And you have to give up or walk away and come back another day. Another question: do you find that cases go smoother during the holiday seasons, or do they get worse at other times?
Well, you know, they can during the holiday seasons can be a little bit easier. I tell this story quite a bit. I used to be a public defender years and years ago, and the hardest job I think there is as a lawyer. I mean, the judges hate you, the state hates you, clients hate you, everybody hates you. It was a really rough job. But I used to be in front of this this older Southern white judge, and I was assigned to his courtroom, and we handled serious felonies in there. And it didn't take me long to realize that this guy was going to just hammer everybody that came up if he had the opportunity. So if there wasn't a plea negotiation, the judge was going to hammer the guy. So, but there are times when you just couldn't work out a good deal with the state, and so you had to do what's called plead people open. You had to just go up there and say, Judge, my client, you know, pleads guilty or no contest. Just, you know, here's the mitigating factors. You know, what can you do? And some judges would give advisory opinions, so you could kind of approach the bench. That's one of the things we do as lawyers, is we approach the bench, and like lay people don't know what we're talking about. Sometimes we're talking about, you know, does anybody have hockey tickets and things like that. but
You never would have guessed.
Yeah,
It's nice to know when your life is on the line. You go, do you have good seats? You know.
well, you know, that goes back to the likability thing, honestly.
Yes.
So I got word during the time that I worked in this courtroom that, and this was like in the fall, that this particular judge just turned into a sweetheart right before Christmas. And so I can remember I continued a bunch of cases from September, October, November to December, and then I just lined them up, man, and I pled them. I pled them all and got smoking deals on everybody because it was the holiday season, it was the end of the year, kind of thing like that. I think there's a little bit of that same attitude at the IRS, you know, where if somebody has a wage levy right before Christmas, you know, right before Christmas is a good time to call and sort of play that card. If if that's what you got, you know,
the only card.
The only card you got in that
It's the only face card you got.
That's
in your
actually
hand.
one of the reasons why I'm not shy about saying this. I'm not a huge fan of you know, wage levies, like trying to get wage levies released, because it's hard, and you don't really have any leverage. It's not like, if you guys don't do this, then I have this card that I can play that's going to trump that card. There is nothing like that. You're just sort of at their mercy. And so it can be really challenging, where you have to come up with more unique
They
and
got
novel.
the highest card in the deck, and you're like, please, can you help me just stay in there? I want to stay in the game.
When
Yeah.
you find yourself in a difficult situation, what's the time frame that you have to regroup and still have some effectiveness in the courtroom?
Oh, in a courtroom,
Yeah.
it's measured in seconds. I mean, yeah, I mean, but one of the great things about being a public defender, and if there are any people, you know, aspiring lawyers and they're listening, I would suggest becoming a public defender, because it's going to be the best OJT you could ever have, the best on the job training
yeah.
ever, because things happen in the courtroom in particular all the time, multiple times a day, that you were not expecting. Shots from left field that you're like, wow, didn't see that one coming. And the really effective lawyers, that stuff comes in, they process it in a matter of, you know, fractions of a second, and then they react in such a way that it appears that they knew about it all along. And so if you can act with that degree of precision and you know, if you can respond that
Think fast,
rapidly,
be on your feet
yeah, if you can think that fast, then, you know, you're really going to do well. The other thing that's great about being either a state attorney or a public defender is that typically you're going to spend hours a day in a courtroom, and you're going to see all the private lawyers, all the old hands come in, and you can learn good lessons and bad lessons. I once saw a lawyer that I really respect, and one of the rules that we always hear is you never ask a question in court that you don't know the answer to, right?
Pretty much in life, that's a good
but sometimes
philosophy
you just have a gut feeling and you just go for it, okay? But this lawyer made just an absolute bonehead mistake one time. After the state put on their case, they had not proven their case. Or actually, that's not what happened. They put on a witness, they asked the questions, and they did not hurt him at all on their questions. And he goes blundering in there on cross-examination, and he was the one that elicited all the bad testimony and sunk his case and sunk his, his client. And so as just a baby lawyer, I was probably a lawyer for less than a year. I saw that happen, and I was like, mental note, do not do that.
Baby lawyer.
So there's lots of things that are applicable from the courtroom into the IRS practice. It's just that in my practice now, most of the stuff happens on the phone. So that's really can be really good. There's a lot of nonverbal communication that can't happen on the phone. But one of the things that I think is important for me is I wear a headset when I speak on the phone 100% of the time, and I try to smile like I am right now. And do you see the difference in the tonality of my voice? And when I smiled, I actually sound nicer when I'm smiling than I am when I'm not smiling right now.
You sound like an IRS agent when you're not smiling.
Doesn't he?
I know, he does.
I got scared.
He's got one off.
So I think that's really important. It's about personality, and it's about drive, and it's about wanting to win, and it's about wanting the absolute best for your clients every day, all the time, no matter what, even when they're irritating.
And winning doesn't always mean that you have to be nasty and mean. It's negotiating.
Rarely is it intelligent to be nasty or mean after you win.
You'll go nowhere.
I can remember some of the very hardest fought jury trials that had become somewhat personal, and getting acquittals and walking over to the prosecutor, who I did not like, and slapping him on the back, shaking his hand, big old smile, and said, "Hey, you did a really good job, until next time." And I did that when I lost too. But so it wasn't like I was just rubbing it in. Mm-hmm. You just, it's about relationships. And so you don't want to burn bridges with the relationships if you can help it.
It's no different on our side. You never know, you may be working with a listing agent and then a buyer's agent the next time. You just never know. And so what you do now may hurt your client tomorrow.
It's become a very small world.
Yeah, it is.
It comes back on you.
Yeah.
So, you're listening to the IRS Solution Attorney Show, and it's about that time. Let's take a quick...
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Curious what your Tampa home is worth? Here's an easy way to find out what homes like yours are selling for in today's market. Text the word value to 813-377-2775 for a free report on Tampa house prices. We'll send you a free report with up-to-the-minute statistics based on all homes for sale sold in your neighborhood over the last 6 months in all price ranges. To get your free report on Tampa Bay house prices, just call or text the word value to 813-377-2775.
Are you suffering from IRS problems? Do you owe back taxes you can't pay? Is your paycheck or bank account being levied? Or maybe you haven't filed tax returns in years and simply don't know what to do. This is Darrin T. Mish to tell you that if you're tired of IRS problems hanging over your head and are ready for a fresh start, we may be able to help. Call the law offices of Darrin T. Mish at 888-GET-MISH, 888-GET-MISH. I can help you file old tax returns, work to release tax liens or stop wage levies, even negotiate deals to pay off back taxes at a discount, sometimes for pennies on the dollar. Hey, let's face it, these days it's not hard to get into tax trouble. A divorce, failed business, health problems, you name it. The point is, IRS problems may be solved if you're willing to take the first step. Call for a free consultation at 888-GET-MISH. That's 888-438-6474. Or go to the web at getirshelp.com, because the one sure thing is, IRS problems don't solve themselves. So get Mish. 888-438-6474. Principal Office, Tampa.
Ask me about an inside secret to save several hundreds of dollars on your annual homeowner's insurance premium. Text the word WIND, W-I-N-D, to 813-377-2775. Again, 813-377-2775. Hi, I'm Katrina Madewell, host of Tampa Home Talk. I'm going to give you market-appropriate, timely information regarding homeownership matters, because we want to make your everyday life better. Wherever you are in life, it's our mission to bring you good advice so you can maintain good credit, live within your means, and build wealth. My team and I are passionate about it. Love where you live, or I'll fix it. Tampa Home Talk on WTAN every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
The law works.
Welcome back. You're listening to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. I'll get that right one of these days. It might take me a year or so. Going into this segment, we're going to talk about, are you guilty of tax evasion?
You know, and during the break, Jeff had some really good questions. So, Jeff, go ahead and repeat those.
The first question is, do good people fall on hard times and do silly things with the IRS?
You know, when I was doing a lot of criminal defense work years and years ago, there was even good people who just made bad decisions. You know, they wrote a bad check that they couldn't take care of before it went to prosecution, or they got in an argument with their wife when they drank too much and pushed her or whatever, and or they got a DUI because they had, 1 or 10 too many drinks. And those are still
up in the moment.
those are really good people, too. But in the IRS, problem space, I think it's even more common for just really good people to just kind of get behind. Most of the people that I speak to, honestly, they didn't set out to end up owing $100,000 or $200,000
So
or
what causes that?
Well, they're working people.
Yeah, they're working people. Typically, I would say a majority of my clients are self-employed people just trying to make the ends meet, and they just don't budget for the taxes because they don't understand how they're supposed to be, remitting those taxes, paying those taxes over to the government. And they don't, they're a good candlestick maker. They're not a good businessman. They're a good plumber. They're not a good administrator. They're not an accountant. They're, whatever it is they're doing. They're a realtor. Realtors are just like notoriously.
You love to throw me
bad.
under the bus. I love it. I don't mind.
About this.
But you know what? I don't handle my stuff. I have bookkeepers. They do. I just tell them what to do, and I'm all straight. But
Yeah,
I've been
because
there.
you're really sophisticated, at this point in your career, so you don't have those problems. But it's good people, and sometimes it's a lifestyle thing. Like when our personal economies start to head downhill,
Yes.
we don't. The first thing, most people don't immediately cut their personal expenses, and sometimes they can't. Maybe they have a house payment that's through the roof, or you see a lot of people with kids in private schools, and I look at that tuition bill and I'm like, wow, that's high. So it's just good people who just don't really know the way out, and they think that they think that professional help is really expensive or unobtainable. Sometimes they just don't know that who to call to get help.
With that attitude, it's mitigate or litigate. Because if you know the trouble is there, that it's only going to get worse, and smart people just don't make smart decisions. You're going to be called one way or the other sooner or later.
A lot of them are very entrepreneurial, and I have those characteristics as well. And when you're an entrepreneur and you have boundless optimism, you think you can out-earn your way out of just about any problem that you have. And so, and sometimes, a lot of times that happens, but it doesn't always happen. And so that's one of the problems that I see with folks too, is they're like, I'm just going to out earn this, but
out earn your stupidity.
Yeah. Hope without a plan is not really, going to work out.
Fool's errand.
It's wishful thinking.
Yeah. But every time I've actually planned out something, chunk down that goal into a plan and then chunk the plan down into little action steps. A lot of times when I don't even know how to do this stuff, every time I've ever done that, that goal has come true. So a lot of times the people that come to me don't really have a tax problem so much as they have a business problem. Their business is not generating the revenue that it's supposed to. And when it's appropriate, I try to help, try to fix the business as much as I can. But, that's not, people don't come to me for business advice. They come to me for legal advice. And so sometimes it's not really
fitting.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not well received,
But going back to the question of, are you guilty of tax evasion? I know I've heard you say this a number of times on the show, Darrin, that a lot of people that come for tax evasion, they think they're going to prison. I would too. Like in that space, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, there's a really high percentage of people that come and think they're guilty.
They come with their toothbrush and everything?
No, I don't think they've ever come with their toothbrush.
They have the night trimmers because they haven't.
You never know what's in a woman's purse, so But anyway, sometimes they are really, really nervous, and they think that they're guilty of tax evasion.
What's the percentage of people actually do go to jail? I mean,
it's
is
low.
debtor's prison still? Do we have debtor's prison?
Well, okay, let me give you some percentage or some perspective. I've been representing taxpayers with tax problems for over 16 years, and I can safely, comfortably say the number of clients is in the thousands, and knock on wood, not one.
This is wood. That's for Micah over here.
There's no real wood anymore.
Not one person has even been, credibly threatened with prosecution, let alone prosecuted.
Even
Now,
the guy that whited out his checks, huh? Remember
even
him?
that guy.
Really?
So let's tell that story. Real
I don't
quick.
know any of your clients, but I know all their stories.
What Katrina's talking about. I was representing a guy years ago in an audit. I hope he's listening too, because he'll get a kick out of this. And during the audit, where we show the auditor, he's not there, but we're showing the auditor the proof of the canceled checks. And I didn't know this until this happened. But on the bottom of the canceled checks, there's a series of numbers, and the series of numbers is like the account number, the routing number, and the amount of the check. Okay, so what he did was he went in and he whited out and then wrote in like a higher amount, and then he photocopied them. So he basically forged all these photocopies.
That's right.
And the auditor looks at me, big smile, and she goes, "Did you know that the amount of the checks is right here coded on the bottom, and your client forgot to change that when he changed the rest?"
The check number's the last digit, too.
Yeah, so that was a lesson learned.
Now you just shared that with everybody.
Yeah. Now, and he didn't go to jail. He wasn't even.
That's just dumb.
He wasn't even referred. I mean, he committed.
Was he even scared?
Was it a large
No,
amount?
I don't think he was.
Oh, my gosh.
I can count like 3 different felonies that he committed that day, and no, I don't think he was real scared. He should have been, because I think that was criminal
crazy
activity. And
So it can happen. They could go to jail.
oh yeah, there's lots of things that there. I heard some stats recently. I mean, there's thousands of federal statutes that criminalize behavior that none of us even know, especially in the last 6 or 7 years. Even more regulations and laws have been passed that we don't even know criminalize behavior. So there's a lot of stuff.
Garage sales, for one.
Yeah,
It's
depending
a
on
$15 million federal fine if you have a garage sale.
What?
Yeah. Hello. I didn't vote for him. Did you?
What are you talking about? Seriously?
Check out garage sales. Yeah, absolutely. Check it out.
Look up the statute, Darrin, will you?
Look it up.
During our next break, we'll look
Yeah,
that up.
no,
and-
like another day.
Okay, well, actually, I want to do it at the break.
Okay.
That'll be a good thing to talk about in the next
And
segment.
Christmas gift. Oh, okay, I shouldn't do. Sorry. If you're getting somebody a drone that's not registered with the FAA, prison time and a fine.
Yeah, and it goes without saying you should not be pointing lasers in the sky. You know,
Oh, my gosh. I had this conversation with my son.
the people who are trying to blind pilots and bring down planes, not
Oh,
smart.
fun. Almost
Yeah.
went to Ethiopia. I had just doing that, pointing a laser at somebody. What?
Yeah. So let's talk about the people.
Idiots.
The people that are,
Who are your
worried
clients?
about tax evasion. There's some different categories that come in with tax problems, and the first will be non-filers. So a non-filer is somebody who has one or many tax returns that they haven't filed. And Jeff, there's a lot of reasons why that happens too. The biggest reason why someone turns into a non-filer and then it stretches into a decade is they're self-employed. They know they've made no estimated tax payments. They know they're going to have a hefty tax bill, and so maybe they get an extension till October, and then October comes, and they in April, when they do that extension till October, they mean to do it, and they fully intend with all their hearts to have the money by October to pay their tax bill. And lots of self-employed people do that, actually file in October and pay their tax bill. But then
Well, the other thing, too, though, is expenses. Because, like, somebody like me, I mean, I don't exactly fit that category, but, like, if I didn't have a bookkeeper keeping up with all that stuff, you have to itemize all those expenses, get them all ready, so that when you take them to your tax preparer, they don't send you with a bill bigger than you get from the IRS for going through a shoebox full of stuff.
for sure.
But,
sure.
I think that's the biggest thing for most people that would snowball.
Yeah, disorganization is a really big thing. And so then the October date comes and goes. They don't file. They still intend to file. They mean to do it. And then it slides into the next April. That's only 6 months away. But the IRS does nothing. They send no letter. Nobody showed up.
They're busy
to cart them away. They're busy. Life gets ahead. And so
But
then
they still know it.
And then 2 years comes. Same thing happens.
Right.
Nobody calls.
October.
No letters. And then the next thing happens. And before long, it's 2, 3, 4 years. And now they're really scared because they know, I mean, the law says we have to file a tax return, right? So they know they're in trouble, but they don't know how to extricate themselves from the trouble. And now the word overwhelming is used in my office a lot.
And burying your head in the sand, too.
Yeah, people just say, it's so overwhelming. I have no idea how to approach dealing with this problem. And I love these problems because they're such a burden on people. And I have the answers to resolving these problems, for so many people. And I actually love, well, I don't love the fact that they come in stressed, but I love the fact that I try to leave them
You can take it off.
less stressed because it's really fulfilling. I mean, everybody likes to make people happy. At least, sane people do, right? So it's nice to be able to, turn
Even
people.
if you're an IRS attorney.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was just had to slid out.
It's nice to send people on their way happier, less stressed than when they showed up. Smart Alec. So that's the first. That's the first
I
category.
have to make the show fun, otherwise it would be way too serious.
I'm
with an
plenty
attorney
fun.
hosting it.
So there's non-filers, and then there's the second category would be people who came into a lot of money and then they spent it all before they paid the
You
taxes.
have to talk. What do you mean by that specifically? Like, what's some
Inheritance.
examples?
An inheritance, but that would be very rare
But I
because
don't
most
think-
inheritances
they don't-
are not taxable.
yeah, they don't really get
It
taxed
could be a
on
lotto
inheritance.
winning.
Until
I've had
660,000.
well, yeah, unless it's over some predetermined number that changes
660,000.
every single year that I have to look up every time.
Why does it change?
Congress, that's Congress's
New
fault.
people.
But lotto, I've had some lotto winners come in and they say this one gal came in and she said she won, let's say it was $6 million, which would be kind of a small lotto winning, and she owed a bunch of taxes because she didn't pay the taxes. And you're thinking,
How do they not take
you
it?
just had
That's
$6 million.
My question
bucks.
exactly. Why
But-
don't they take it right
I thought
when
they
you
would.
cash out?
In this particular case, they didn't take it, and she went and she bought a very modest house, like a $175,000 house or something, which she paid for in full, which is great, right?
Okay.
And then she blew the rest.
Then she couldn't find $6
like
million.
literally,
Like it was just gone.
blew it.
Like gave it away and just partied with it.
People do.
Partied,
It's crazy.
she gave some of it away to close family. But when I asked her, so what'd you do with it? I wasn't getting real clear answers. So that's another,
Because they don't know. I mean,
No.
people like that have no plan, again, and they're not good at saving, and they just have this windfall of money.
So my best advice to somebody who comes into a windfall, especially like a lottery winning, is go and see a
Financial
lawyer and a
person.
financial advisor immediately.
Yep.
Look, you weren't rich, the second before you won the lottery. So
Well, statistics show those people are broke within 5 years.
Yeah.
well, and I've
Or less.
represented athletes from every major league except for the NHL. And by the way, any hockey players out there that want to come on by to help even that up, that'd be great.
And your number is?
My number is 888-438-6474. That's 888-GET-MISH.
888-GET-MISH, M-I-S-H.
Get Mish. So, yeah, I've represented a bunch of a football player, a baseball player, an NBA player, and yeah, they're broke because they didn't have a plan, and it's because they were good technicians. They were good at what they do for a living. The guy that I represent that's the NBA was in the NBA. It's 7 foot tall. I mean, you can't teach that.
Don't make him mad.
You can't do that.
Can't teach that. So, but he didn't have a real good financial plan. The third kind of person that comes in with a problem is the kind of person who has an incomplete or an incorrect tax return.
What does that look like?
So they file a tax return, and sometimes they forget to put the income. They forget, in air quotes, to put the income from a 1099 because they didn't get it, or they just they don't want to acknowledge that it exists. And maybe the
Maybe they got it
IRS
late.
won't. Maybe they got it late. But see, what happens, folks, is when you file a tax return, what happens is the IRS computer, no person does this, the IRS computer goes and checks your Social Security numbers for a married couple, and then it looks for information returns to match to your tax return to make sure that all those information returns showed up on the return. So what's an information return? It's a W-2, a 1099, a 1096, a 1098, all
Some
those
new ones coming.
all that stuff. Those are all information returns, and Congress keeps passing laws.
I mean, someone's gave you some money or something you should be reporting.
Yeah, there's some financial transaction that you must account for. Sometimes it's not even an income thing. It's just you just have to account for it. It's the one that
People that have a short sale, they might get a 1098 from
or 1099-C,
Or 1099-C,
cancellation
thank
debt.
you, see.
That's the one that was right at the top of my mind. Is like if you deal with that and you have one of the exceptions, then you don't have to pay tax on that cancellation of debt. But if you don't deal with that cancellation of debt, 1099, then you're going to have to pay tax. Did you know this, Jeff? You're going to have to pay tax on debt that was canceled. So you go through a
Didn't
short
know
sale.
that.
So
they wrote it off.
the bank writes off $100,000 second mortgage, say, and if you don't, if you don't deal with that on your tax return appropriately with somebody who knows what they're doing, then you're going to have to pay tax on that $100,000 that
After
you
you've
never
been canceled.
Yeah, yeah.
What about if you don't get it? Is that a gray area, or you're always supposed to do it?
No, not getting it, not an
Doesn't matter.
excuse.
No, no,
Okay.
no.
You've got to deal
So
with
what
it.
do you have to fill out?
Well, there's a couple different forms. There's another one too that if they're insolvent, what is it, 982C? I'm not a tax person
There's
at
a
all.
Form 982 that deals with the cancellation of debt, and there's a couple exceptions that are pretty good. There's one for primary, home ownership, and there's one for
That was new.
insolvency. And then
Insolvency's been around for a while, but the other one's new.
we use insolvency all the time. So if the taxpayer was insolvent at the time of the
Meaning
cancellation
you have no
of
money.
debt, meaning that you have no, actually,
Isn't it?
okay, kind of.
Hardship,
It means
no money?
it means insolvent in this, in this way means
Yeah, because that's
that,
an attorney word.
Yeah, it means that your debts exceed your assets. So you don't have to be broke.
That's pretty much
necessarily.
90% of the
Well,
population.
You're upside down. Negative net worth.
Well, how many people have a mortgage written off that weren't insolvent? Now, there are some
there's a
investors.
ton, yeah.
Investors
But
have
not,
that,
Not everyday people.
but not your
Strategic default. That's another one.
right. Not the people. Not the people with one home,
Right.
Who have
Right.
who have been having trouble making their mortgage payments. Those are the people that are going to fall.
We've
under
seen
the
a lot of those
insolvency.
people. They, one of the primary wage earner, they lost their job. They maybe had some time in between where they didn't have another job, and then when they got another job, it was making half or a fraction of what they were making before.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good exception. The fourth kind of person that comes in is they have the money to pay their taxes and they just don't want to part with it. Now, those
IRS.
folks are actually kind of rare, and those folks might be entering into the tax evasion sort of realm of things. We're going to talk about an example later of someone who certainly fell into that realm. That's pretty uncommon, and most of those people aren't coming to me for help, right? Because they kind of know that they're doing something that's,
Where would they go instead of you?
Good question. I don't know. I mean, I certainly can help them, but we have to have a heart-to-heart and decide, okay, you have the money. Now, how are we going to deal with the fact that you have the money? So, and a lot of times what that looks like is we're going to work out an installment agreement. So you owe $50,000. You have $50,000. You don't want to give them all $50,000. So let's do an installment agreement of $700 or $800 a month. And
It's easier to make payments than stroke a check for
yeah.
50 grand.
Now, I would also say that using the IRS as your bank and financing company
Blah.
is a really bad idea because the interest and penalties are really high.
Plus, they're not very good with money. Anybody with the government.
So sometimes that's what you have to do.
They confuse IRS with IRA, I think.
And the last kind of people who come in, and this is super, super rare, are people who lied on their tax returns and they're actively doing their best to hide the money from the IRS.
Like what?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that.
you would be
Like
somebody
what?
who, okay, so I'll give you an example. Contractor, let's say it's a tree contractor, just so that gives us a little bit better of a mental picture.
So somebody cuts down trees or trims them or
Yeah.
whatever?
So he's going to homeowners, right? And he's getting paid ultimately by the homeowner. And so he doesn't have like one big identifiable source of money that's going to issue a 1099. I mean, if you have a tree guy come to your house, you're not going to issue him a 1099. It's just not the way
Right.
the world works.
Any contractor, really.
So, yeah, right. So some of his clients are going to pay him with checks, and some of them are going to swipe a credit card, on his little mobile device or whatever, and some of them are going to pay him cash.
Yep.
It's just the way it's going to be. And he's probably even going to give the ones who pay cash a discount. He's probably even going to go tell them, hey,
Right.
if you pay me cash,
10% or
yeah,
whatever.
I'll cut you some slack. And then that guy in our hypothetical situation is not going to report the cash on the tax return. And I would say,
Hopefully you're not cutting trees for an IRS person.
I would
No,
say
that would be sad. wouldn't it?
I'll give you a discount if you pay cash. Oh, you will.
Funny you should say that.
I would say
Get
that
Mish.
in the
888 get Mish.
I would say in the blue collar trades that where they're dealing with the public or even small business,
That happens all the time.
it's going to happen a lot. There's a huge underground economy that's not currently being taxed, and the IRS and Congress would
Cash
love
money,
nothing
bars.
more. They would love nothing more than to know about every transaction that
Completely
occurs.
regulate it.
Now, let me tell you a little story about something that happened in the past 5 years, and it was a dismal failure. And that was Congress passed a law that said, now all payments over $600, even to corporations, which currently aren't subject to the 1099 rules, but all payments, even between corporations, were going to have to be subject to a 1099. And here's what happened, and it was hilarious
That
because
is passed or it's not passed?
that did get passed.
Ooh,
Okay?
okay.
And what happened was when it passed, I just scoffed. I'm like, look, they can't even handle the data they have now. That's billions, perhaps trillions of transactions every year.
Right.
They're going to swamp themselves with data. And that's exactly what happened. They did like a trial on it, and they made it like voluntary for a little while.
Yeah.
And the voluntary
They said, oh, no thanks.
yeah, they just couldn't handle it. So until we go to an entirely electronic-based currency,
Cashless society.
which I hope we don't go
Scary.
to, because I mean the prospects for ultimate government control
is very high at that point.
Yeah, in a completely electronic, paperless currency system, the opportunity for a dictator to seize control and just really
is very
scary.
plausible and very possible.
And I'm not being a weirdo when I say that.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
People cannot dispute that we're heading in that direction. So people that say, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist," no, just read, just see what's going on. They really want us to be cashless. Eventually, well, maybe sooner than you think. Eventually, when cash is not around, don't think about dealing in gold, because gold is not a currency. So you can't go to 7-Eleven and buy a Slurpee and give them a Bitcoin or something. It doesn't work. So what are you going to do? You're going to hand them a chain of gold? Here, I brought a loaf of bread for a chain of gold. No. You got to use the card.
Up in Alaska and in the
Scary
Yukon
stuff.
and stuff, where they do a lot of gold mining, and they have a lot of real fine gold. They actually do use gold as a
Bits of
currency
gold.
up in there, because they're out in the middle of nowhere.
Who's going to know?
Yeah, I often wonder how those gold miners are even taxed, because
How do you know?
how much gold?
How many grams?
How much gold just doesn't end up where on the books?
Lots of it.
But we're kind of in a big
One
segue
for me,
here.
One for you.
Yeah, two for
One
me.
for me, one for you.
It already is a law that if you withdraw money more than $10,000 from a bank account, which, by the way, is probably more cash than most banks carry on hand. I don't know. That's speculation.
And that just
but,
irritates me, by the way.
I had to wait 5 days.
but
That really irritates me.
if you withdraw more than $10,000,
You gotta
then
report it.
then the bank's going to report it. But also, this has been in the news lately, and that is that the banks are under pressure from the federal regulators to report more and more large cash withdrawals as potentially suspicious, even under 10 grand. So, a lot of my clients will come and pay in cash, and yes, all that money ends up in the bank. It does.
And reported.
Gosh, I don't do anything wrong, and I want to go open a Swiss bank account.
All that stuff, all that cash
Can't
ends
do
up in
that
the bank.
anymore.
But so if a client comes and pays me, $3,000 in $100 bills, potentially their bank is reporting that as a potentially suspicious withdrawal. And
How does that affect you as an attorney? Like,
well,
take that cash?
I don't think as much as the person who withdrew it.
That's, like,
well, when I was
scary.
doing criminal defense work, there could have been some conflicts, right? Because a lawyer cannot take money that he knows is the result of criminal behavior or activity. So when you're doing a lot of drug representation and you get paid $3 grand and it comes in fives and tens, which used to happen.
So I'm good at Amscot.
And they're rolled up.
Some free
It
money
used to
orders.
happen, especially with the fly-by repeat customers, which is one of the reasons why I don't do that work anymore. Is I just didn't
Well,
feel
how
good.
would they know that's drug money? It doesn't say this is drug money. It's money. It's currency.
We get that too, though. Like people that want to pay cash, I'm like, nope. Let's go to the bank. I'll get you a cashier's check. I
and
don't want
just-
to hold it.
Just to go farther down the rabbit hole that we are.
Why not? We're already there.
If you test most currency in the United States, it has
has
traces of cocaine on it. So I don't know if you could use that particular fact for any reason, but
That's a stretch.
yeah, I mean, it's not a problem for me to get paid in cash given the nature of my work. The percentage of cash is actually kind of low. But also another interesting
That's
thing is we're starting to see audits where the percentage of cash is not high enough given the type of business.
Like?
So the IRS has, I'll give you an example in a second. The IRS has all kinds of stats on what types of businesses and how much cash they should bring in. I thought I brought this up a few weeks ago, and that was my liquor store owner who he had a 1099-K that reported all of the credit card transactions, and that's what the number he used on his tax return as the gross income for the business. Well, what's the problem with that? There was no cash at a liquor store. None.
Yeah, right.
In a year? None. And so he was audited, and
Well, yeah, that would make sense.
and what happened is, to go further, they went and looked at some of the supplier invoices, and those were paid in cash. So he was attributed more money as a gross because they knew roughly what the percentage of cash should be, and so that's where we're at now. As we move into a more electronic currency-based system, more and more businesses are going to have a lower and lower percentage of cash. So those audits are really interesting to me, and it's caused me to actually encourage more people to pay in cash because I'm like, I don't know if my ratio is right here, So
Weird. That's so weird.
because even in my practice, we're getting mostly debit and credit cards, the next would be checks, and the last would be cash. So in the next segment, I want to talk about an example of an attorney who actually went down this tax evasion
We've
route.
got some great questions, too. So you're listening to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. If you have some of those questions, you can call Darrin, the host with the most, at 888-GET-MISH, 888-GET-MISH, M-I-S-H. And you can also catch him on Facebook and Twitter
At Darrin Mish, or don't forget the website, it's getirshelp.com.
Stick around. We'll be back in a minute.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Curious what your Tampa home is worth? Here's an easy way to find out what homes like yours are selling for in today's market. Text the word value to 813-377-2775 for a free report on Tampa house prices. We'll send you a free report with up-to-the-minute statistics based on all homes for sale sold in your neighborhood over the last 6 months in all price ranges. To get your free report on Tampa Bay house prices, just call or text the word value to 813-377-2775.
Are you suffering from IRS problems? Do you owe back taxes you can't pay? Is your paycheck or bank account being levied? Or maybe you haven't filed tax returns in years and simply don't know what to do. This is Darrin T. Mish to tell you that if you're tired of IRS problems hanging over your head and are ready for a fresh start, we may be able to help. Call the law offices of Darrin T. Mish at 888-GET-MISH, 888-GET-MISH. I can help you file old tax returns, work to release tax liens or stop wage levies, even negotiate deals to pay off back taxes at a discount, sometimes for pennies on the dollar. Hey, let's face it, these days it's not hard to get into tax trouble. A divorce, failed business, health problems, you name it. The point is, IRS problems may be solved if you're willing to take the first step. Call for a free consultation at 888-GET-MISH. That's 888-438-6474. Or go to the web at getirshelp.com, because the one sure thing is, IRS problems don't solve themselves. So get Mish. 888-438-6474. Principal Office, Tampa.
Ask me about an inside secret to save several hundreds of dollars on your annual homeowner's insurance premium. Text the word WIND, W-I-N-D, to 813-377-2775. Again, 813-377-2775. Hi, I'm Katrina Madewell, host of Tampa Home Talk. I'm going to give you market-appropriate, timely information regarding home ownership matters, because we want to make your everyday life better. Wherever you are in life, it's our mission to bring you good advice so you can maintain good credit, live within your means, and build wealth. My team and I are passionate about it. Love where you live, or I'll fix it. Tampa Home Talk on WTAN every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m.
And welcome back to our last segment. You're listening to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. We had a question from Barry in Michigan. He actually caught the show via the web. And his question is, if he's behind on his state taxes as well as his federal taxes, can you help him with both issues, Darrin?
So just to be clear, you said his state taxes, and it sounded like a state taxes. So I do not.
Well, it says if he's behind on my state taxes as well as federal taxes.
No, I understand. I'm trying to just make the distinction of estate, a state,
It
like
says
like
state.
a death,
Yeah.
like a death kind of. No, I don't handle estate taxes, but I can and do help people with their state tax problems. Typically, what we would do is the state tax problem is going to be relatively minor, and we'd work out a deal with the state first, get them on some sort of an installment agreement, and then we actually can use that installment agreement payment to show the IRS that he has a diminished ability to pay them back, and often work out an offer and compromise and make out some kind of really good deal with the feds.
We don't talk about this a lot, but you can represent anybody anywhere in the U.S.
Yes, I can and do have clients in all 50 states. One of the things that's challenging about state tax cases is that every state has their own laws pertaining
Right.
to taxes, and so it can make it kind of challenging. But being down here in Tampa, I have lots of clients
Figure
that
it
came
out.
from Michigan, Ohio, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, all over the place up
So
north.
was your attorney thing you were going to talk about, was that the Wichita attorney that was sentenced for federal tax evasion?
Yeah, there's always some attorney in Wichita getting popped for tax evasion. And in this case, what he did was really kind of not that intelligent, but it's probably a situation where he had some money pressures and he just got behind and he didn't intend, well, in this case, maybe he did intend. So what happened is he was found guilty of failing to pay income taxes in 1998, 2000, 2002 through 2005. 2007 through 2008, and there was also a payroll tax penalty from 1999, and that in and of itself is not really a problem. Not paying the taxes if you can't pay is really not a problem and not a crime. But in this case, what this particular lawyer did, probably using some of his lawyerly skills, was he interfered with the government's efforts to collect the taxes he owed by putting his law firm in the name of a nominee, so the name of someone else. He terminated his own payment agreement, with his law firm. So he basically fired himself from being paid at the law firm, and then he had his firm pay his personal expenses. And so the government figured that all out and ultimately decided to charge him with a crime. And the reason that they charge people like this lawyer in Wichita, is because they don't have the resources to charge all of us, or as many people as there are that are committing different various tax offenses. They can't charge everyone because they don't have the resources. So what they try to do is charge higher profile people in the community, judges, lawyers, doctors, that kind of thing, politicians.
You should know better.
They can, so that it ends up in the news, and some guy in Tampa, Florida on the radio starts talking about how the IRS prosecuted him for federal tax evasion, because they're really getting a good bang for their buck in this particular case. He has been sentenced to do the next 3 years in federal prison, and I'm sure that's not going to be the worst thing, but it's not going to be the most enjoyable 3 years of his life.
Doesn't sound
either.
like fun to me.
Given the fact that he's 67 years old, probably not going to be a good time.
I think it's about that time.
Hopefully you can hear my smile. This is actually my most favorite segment of the week. It's the IRS train wreck of the week. This is where I get to talk about people who came into the office, that nervous wreck. They had the biggest problem in their lives, and we sat down, we figured out a game plan, we implemented the plan, and ultimately it worked out. In this particular case, a husband and wife came in. They had been non-filers for many years. We didn't even know how much they owed. We ended up getting all of their tax returns prepared and filed. Turns out their balance due was over $209,000.
How many years was that?
As I recall, it was probably 10 or 12 years. It was a good long time. And, they had gone through a period in their life in the boom times when they were in the real estate, roughly peripherally related to real estate. And so they were making really good money. Well, when the recession came, their income crashed, and now they were much lower income. Ultimately, we made an offer and compromise for these folks, and it ended up going through. It was $209,000, but they had some assets. So you guys are used to me really saying, they owed $209 and I settled for $1,000. This story is not like this at all. What happened is they had some assets. The IRS found some horses and some other things like that, and I was trying to argue to the IRS, like, look, a horse, unless it's a racehorse or some kind of stud breeder, is not an asset. This is a liability.
Vet bills.
Yeah, but in this particular case, the deal that we worked out is we roughly settled for about $48,000, and they were able. We never talked about this. We worked it out so that they were able to pay that at roughly $2,000 a month over the next 24 months, interest-free, penalty-free. So $48,000 on $209,000, really good deal. 25 cents on the dollar or less. And more importantly, these people are really, really nice people, and they have a plan now. And as long as they meet their end of the bargain, this IRS nightmare is over for them. So I'm really happy. I worked on that case for over 4 years.
Wow.
I had to. I filed the offer. It was rejected. I filed an appeal. I worked the appeal for the better part of a year and a half, and we never gave up. And by the way, that settlement officer in IRS appeals and I are tight now. She wanted the case. I got her on my side. She wanted that case to go through as bad as I did. So when you can do that, then you can really do magical stuff. You got to sway people to your way of thinking if you can, in an honest or moral, ethical way.
Well, the IRS thinks 48,000. All of 48,000 is better than zero of 300,000.
Hey, compared to most of the deals I get worked out, that they did really well on this one. And the client was happy. I thought the client was going to, reject this proposition, just because of cash flow and whatnot. And he goes, since we filed the offer, things started looking up. So, yeah, I think we can do that. So that's the IRS train wreck of the week. If you want to get in touch with me, you give me a call at 888-GET-MISH. That's 888-438-6474. You can hit me up on Twitter or Facebook, or visit our website at getirshelp.com.
Darrin Mish, 2 I's. I and Mish, I and Darrin. So much for this week. We're out.